Long before any man had reason to doubt her innocence, that question of selecting a suitable consort for Rhaenyra had been of concern to King Viserys and his council. Great lords and dashing knights fluttered around her like moths around a flame, vying for her favor. When Rhaenyra visited the Trident in 112, the sons of Lord Bracken and Lord Blackwood fought a duel over her, and a younger son of House Frey made so bold as to ask openly for her hand. Fool Frey, he was called thereafter. In the west, Sir Jason Lannister and his twin, Sir Tyland, vied for her during a feast at Castley Rock. The sons of Lord Tully of Riverrun, Lord Tyrell of Highgarden, Lord Oakhart of Old Oak, and Lord Tarley of Hornhill paid court to the princess, as did the Hand's eldest son, Sir Harwin Strong. Breakbones, as he was called, was heir to Harrenhal, and said to be the strongest man in the Seven Kingdoms. Viserys even talked of wedding Rhaenyra to the Prince of Dorne, as a way of bringing the Dornish into the realm. Queen Alicent had her own candidate, her eldest son, Prince Aegon, Rhaenyra's half-brother. But Aegon was a boy, the princess 10 years his elder. Moreover, the two half-siblings had never gotten on well. All the more reason to bind them together in marriage, the queen argued. Viserys did not agree. The boy is Alicent's own blood, he told Lord Strong. She wants him on the throne. The best choice, king and small council finally agreed, would be Rhaenyra's cousin Laenor Velaryon. Though the Great Council of 101 had ruled against his claim, the Velaryon boy remained a grandson of Prince Aemon Targaryen of hallowed memory, a great-grandson of Theold King himself. Such a match would unite and strengthen the royal bloodline, and regain the Iron Throne. The friendship of the Sea Snake with his powerful fleet. One objection was raised. Laenor Velaryon was now 19 years of age, yet had never shown any interest in women. Instead he surrounded himself with handsome squires of his own age, and was said to prefer their company. But Grand Maester Mellos dismissed this concern out of hand. What of it? He said. I do not like the taste of fish, but when fish is served, I eat it. Thus was the match decided. King and council had neglected to consult the princess, however, and Rhaenyra proved to be very much her father's daughter, with her own notions about whom she wished to wed. The princess knew much and more about Laenor Velaryon, and had no wish to be his bride. My half-brothers would be more to his taste, she told the king. The princess always took care to refer to Queen Alicent's sons as half-brothers, never as brothers. And though his grace reasoned with her, pleaded with her, shouted at her, and called her an ungrateful daughter, no words of his could budge her, until the king brought up the question of succession. What a king had done, a king could undo, Viserys pointed out. She would wed as he commanded, or he would make her half-brother Aegon his heir in place of her. At this the princess's will gave way. Septon Eustace says she fell at her father's knees and begged for his forgiveness, mushroom that she spat in her father's face, but both agree that in the end she consented to be married. And here again our sources differ. That night, Septon Eustace reports, Sir Criston Cole slipped into the princess's bedchamber to confess his love for her. He told Rhaenyra that he had a ship waiting on the bay, and begged her to flee with him across the narrow sea. They would be wed in Tyrosh or Old Volantis, where her father's writ did not run, and no one would care that Sir Criston had betrayed his vows as a member of the Kingsguard. His prowess with sword and Morningstar was such that he did not doubt he could find some merchant prince to take him into service. But Rhaenyra refused him. She was the blood of the dragon, she reminded him, and meant for more than to live out her life as the wife of a common sellsword. And if he could set aside his Kingsguard vows, why would marriage vows mean any more to him? Mushroom tells a very different tale. In his version, it was Princess Rhaenyra who went to Sir Criston, not him to her. She found him alone in White Sword Tower, barred the door, and slipped off her cloak to reveal her nakedness underneath. I saved my maidenhead for you, she told him. Take it now, as proof of my love. It will mean little unless to my betrothed, and perhaps when he learns that I am not chaste he will refuse me. Yet for all her beauty, her entreaties fell on deaf ears, for Sir Criston was a man of honor and true to his vows. Even when Rhaenyra used the arts she had learned from her uncle Daemon, Cole would not be swayed. Scorned and furious, the princess donned her cloak again and swept out into the night, where she chanced to encounter Sir Harwin Strong, returning from a night of revelry in the stews of the city. Breakbones had long desired the princess, and lacked Sir Criston's scruples. It was he who took Rhaenyra's innocence, shedding her maiden's blood upon the sword of his manhood, according to Mushroom, who claims to have found them in bed at break of day, However it happened, whether the princess scorned the knight or he her, from that day forward the love that Sir Criston Cole had formerly borne for Rhaenyra Targaryen turned to loathing and disdain, and the man who had hitherto been the princess's constant companion and champion became the most bitter of her foes. Not long thereafter, Rhaenyra set sail for Driftmark on the Sea Snake, accompanied by her handmaids, two of them the daughters of the Hand and sisters to Sir Harwin, the Fool Mushroom, and her new champion, none other than Breakbones himself. In 114 AC, Rhaenyra Targaryen, Princess of Dragonstone, took to husband Sir Laenor Valerion, knighted a fortnight before the wedding, since it was deemed necessary the prince consort be a knight. The bride was 17 years old, the groom 20, and all agreed that they made a handsome couple. The wedding was celebrated with 7 days of feasts and jousting, the greatest tourney in many a year. Amongst the competitors were Queen Alicent's siblings, 5 sworn brothers of the Kingsguard, Breakbones, and the groom's favorite, Sir Joffrey Lonmouth, known as the Knight of Kisses. When Rhaenyra bestowed her garter on Sir Harwin, her new husband laughed and gave one of his own to Sir Joffrey. Denied Rhaenyra's favor, Criston Cole turned to Queen Alicent instead. Wearing her token, the young Lord Commander of the Kingsguard defeated all challengers, fighting in a black fury. He left Breakbones with a broken collarbone and a shattered elbow, prompting Mushroom to name him Broken Bones thereafter, but it was the Knight of Kisses who felt the fullest measure of his wrath. Cole's favorite weapon was the Morningstar, and the blows he rained down on Sir Laenor's champion cracked his helm and left him senseless in the mud. Born bloody from the field, Sir Joffrey died without recovering consciousness 6 days later. Mushroom tells us that Sir Laenor spent every hour of those days at his bedside and wept bitterly when the stranger claimed him. King Viserys was most wroth as well. A joyous celebration had become the occasion of grief and recrimination. It was said that Queen Alicent did not share his displeasure. However, soon after, she asked that Sir Criston Cole be made her personal protector. The coolness between the king's wife and the king's daughter was plain for all to see. Even envoys from the free cities made note of it in letters sent back to Pentos, Bravos, and Old Volantis. Sir Laenor returned to Driftmark thereafter, leaving many to wonder if his marriage had ever been consummated. The princess remained at court, surrounded by her friends and admirers. Sir Criston Cole was not amongst them, having gone over entirely to the Queen's party, the Greens, but the massive and redoubtable Breakbones, or Broken Bones, as Mushroom had it, filled his place, becoming the foremost of the blacks, ever at Rhaenyra's side at feast and ball and hunt. Her husband raised no objections. Sir Laenor preferred the comforts of high tide, where he soon found a new favorite in a household knight named Sir Carl Corey. Thereafter, though he joined his wife for important court events where his presence was expected, Sir Laenor spent most of his days apart from the princess. Septon Eustace says they shared a bed no more than a dozen times. Mushroom concurs, but adds that Carl Corey oft shared that bed as well. It aroused the princess to watch the men disporting with one another, he tells us, and from time to time, too would include her in their pleasures. Yet Mushroom contradicts himself, for elsewhere in his testimony he claims that the princess would leave her husband with his lover on such nights, and seek her own solace in the arms of Harwin Strong. Whatever the truth of these tales, it was soon announced that the princess was with child. Born in the waning days of 114 AC, the boy was a large, strapping lad, with brown hair, brown eyes, and a pug nose. Sir Laenor had the aquiline nose, silver-white hair, and purple eyes that bespoke his Valyrian blood. Laenor's wish to name the child Joffrey was overruled by his father, Lord Corlys. Instead the child was given a traditional Valerian name. Jacaerys' friends and brothers would call him Jace. The court was still rejoicing over the birth of the princess's child when her stepmother, Queen Alicent, also went into labor, delivering Viserys his third son, Daeron, whose coloring, unlike that of Jace, testified to his dragon blood. By royal command, the infants Jacaerys Valerion and Daeron Targaryen shared a wet nurse until weaned. It was said that the king hoped to prevent any enmity between the two boys by raising them as milk brothers. If so, his hopes proved to be sadly forlorn. A year later, in 115 AC, there came a tragic mishap, of the sort that shapes the destiny of kingdoms. The bronze bitch of Runestone, Lady Rhea Royce, fell from her horse whilst hawking and cracked her skull upon a stone. She lingered for 9 days before finally feeling well enough to leave her bed, only to collapse and die within an hour of rising. A raven was duly sent to Storm's End, and Lord Baratheon dispatched a messenger by ship to Bloodstone, where Prince Daemon was still struggling to defend his meager kingdom against the men of the Triarchy and their Dornish allies. Daemon flew at once for the Vale. To put my wife to rest, he said, though more like it was in the hopes of laying claim to her lands, castles, and incomes. In that he failed, Runestone passed instead to Lady Ray's nephew, and when Daemon made appeal to the Eyrie, not only was his claim dismissed, but Lady Jane warned him that his presence in the Vale was unwelcome. Flying back to the Stepstones afterward, Prince Daemon landed at Driftmark to make a courtesy call upon his erstwhile partner in conquest, the Sea Snake, and his wife, the Princess Rhaenys. High Tide was one of the few places in the Seven Kingdoms where the king's brother could be confident he would not be turned away. There his eye fell upon Lord Corlys's daughter, Laena, a maid of 22, tall, slender, and surpassingly lovely. Even Mushroom was taken with her beauty, writing that she was almost as pretty as her brother, with a great mane of silver-gold ringlets that fell down past her waist. Laena had been betrothed from the age of 12 to a son of the Sea Lord of Braavos. But the father had died before they could be wed, and the son soon proved a wastrel and a fool, squandering his family's wealth and power before turning up on Driftmark. Lacking a graceful means to rid himself of the embarrassment, but unwilling to proceed with the marriage, Lord Corlys had repeatedly postponed the wedding. Prince Daemon fell in love with Laena, the singers would have us believe. Men of a more cynical bent believe the prince saw her as a way to check his own descent. Once seen as his brother's heir, he had fallen far down in the line of succession, and neither the Greens nor the Blacks had a place for him. But House Valerion was powerful enough to defy both parties with impunity. Weary of the Stepstones, and free at last of his bronze bitch, Daemon Targaryen asked Lord Corlys for his daughter's hand in marriage. The exiled Braavosi betrothed remained an impediment, but not for long. Daemon mocked him to his face so savagely the boy had no choice but to call him to defend his words with steel. Armed with Dark Sister, the prince made short work of his rival, and wed Lady Laena Valerion a fortnight later, abandoning his hardscrabble kingdom on the Stepstones. 5 other men followed him as kings of the Narrow Sea, until the brief and bloody history of that savage sellsword kingdom ended for good and all. Prince Daemon knew that his brother would not be pleased when he heard of his marriage. Prudently, the prince and his new bride took themselves far from Westeros soon after the wedding, crossing the Narrow Sea on their dragons. Some said they flew to Valyria, in defiance of the curse that hung over that smoking wasteland, to search out the secrets of the dragonlords of the old freehold. Mushroom himself reports this as fact in his testimony, but we have abundant evidence that the truth was less romantic. Prince Daemon and Lady Laena flew first to Pentos, where they were feted by the city's prince. The Pentoshi feared the growing power of the Triarchy to the south, and saw Daemon as a valuable ally against the 3 daughters. From there, they crossed the disputed lands to Old Volantis, where they enjoyed a similar warm welcome. Then they flew up the Rhoyne, to visit Qohor and Norvos. In those cities, far removed from the woes of Westeros and the power of the Triarchy, their welcome was less rapturous. Everywhere they went, however, huge crowds turned out for a glimpse of Vhagar and Caraxes. The Dragonriders were once again in Pentos when Lady Laena learned she was with child. Eschewing further flight, Prince Daemon and his wife settled in a manse outside the city walls as a guest of a Pentoshi magister, until such time as the babe was born. Meanwhile, back in Westeros, Princess Rhaenyra had given birth to a second son late in the year 115 AC. The child was named Lucerys, Luke for short. Septon Eustace tells us that both Sir Laenor and Sir Harwin were at Rhaenyra's bedside for his birth. Like his brother, Jace, Luke had brown eyes and a healthy head of brown hair, rather than the silver-gilt hair of Targaryen princelings, but he was a large and lusty lad, and King Viserys was delighted with him when the child was presented at court. These feelings were not shared by his queen. "Do keep trying," Queen Alicent told Sir Laenor. "According to Mushroom, soon or late, you may get one who looks like you." And the rivalry between the Greens and Blacks grew deeper, finally reaching the point where the queen and the princess could scarce suffer each other's presence. Thereafter Queen Alicent kept to the Red Keep, whilst the princess spent her days on Dragonstone, attended by her ladies, Mushroom, and her champion, Sir Harwin Strong. Her husband, Sir Laenor, was said to visit frequently. In 116 AC, in the free city of Pentos, Lady Laena gave birth to twin daughters, Prince Daemon's first trueborn children. Prince Daemon named the girls Baela, after his father, and Rhaena, after her mother. The babes were small and sickly, alas, but both had fine features, silver-white hair, and purple eyes. When they were half a year old, and stronger, the girls and their mother sailed to Driftmark, whilst Daemon flew ahead with both dragons. From high tide, he sent a raven to his brother in King's Landing, informing his grace of the birth of his nieces and begging leave to present the girls at court to receive his royal blessing. Though his hand and small council argued heatedly against it, Viserys consented, for the king still loved the brother who had been the companion of his youth. Daemon is a father now, he told Grand Maester Mellos. He will have changed. Thus were the sons of Baelon Targaryen reconciled for the second time. In 117 AC, on Dragonstone, Princess Rhaenyra bore yet another son. Sir Laenor was at last permitted to name a child after his fallen friend, Sir Joffrey Lonmouth. Joffrey Valerion was as big and red-faced and healthy as his brothers, but like them he had brown eyes, brown hair, and features that some at court called common. The whispering began again. Amongst the Greens, it was an article of faith that the father of Rhaenyra's sons was not her husband, Laenor, but her champion, Harwin Strong. Mushroom says as much in his testimony and Grand Maester Mellos hints at it, whilst Septon Eustace raises the rumors only to dismiss them. Whatever the truth of these allegations, there was never any doubt that King Viserys still meant for his daughter to follow him upon the Iron Throne, and her sons to follow her in turn. By royal decree, each of the Valerion boys was presented with a dragon's egg whilst in the cradle. Those who doubted the paternity of Rhaenyra's sons whispered that the eggs would never hatch, but the birth in turn of 3 young dragons gave the lie to their words. The hatchlings were named Vermax, Arax, and Tyraxes. And Septon Eustace tells us that his grace sat Jace upon his knee atop the Iron Throne as he was holding court, and was heard to say, "One day this will be your seat, lad." Childbirth exacted a toll on the princess. The weight that Rhaenyra gained during her pregnancies never entirely left her, and by the time her youngest boy was born, she had grown stout and thick of waist, beauty of her girlhood a fading memory, though she was but 20 years of age. According to Mushroom, this only served to deepen her resentment of her stepmother, Queen Alicent, who remained slender and graceful at half again her age. The sins of the fathers are oft visited on the sons, wise men have said, and so it is for the sins of mothers as well. The enmity between Queen Alicent and Princess Rhaenyra was passed on to their sons, and the queen's 3 boys, the princes Aegon, Aemond, and Daeron, grew to be bitter rivals of their Valerion nephews, resentful of them for having stolen what they regarded as their birthright, the Iron Throne itself. Though all 6 boys attended the same feasts, balls, and revels, and sometimes trained together in the yard under the same master-at-arms and studied under the same maesters, this enforced closeness only served to feed their mutual mislike, rather than binding them together as brothers. Whilst Princess Rhaenyra misliked her stepmother, Queen Alicent, she became fond and more than fond of her good sister Lady Laena. With Driftmark and Dragonstone so close, Daemon and Laena oft visited with the princess, and her with them. Many a time they flew together on their dragons, and the princess's she-dragon Syrax produced several clutches of eggs. In 118 AC, with the blessing of King Viserys, Rhaenyra announced the betrothal of her 2 eldest sons to the daughters of Prince Daemon and Lady Laena. Jacaerys was 4 and Lucerys 3, the girls 2. And in 119 AC, when Laena found she was with child again, Rhaenyra flew to Driftmark to attend her during the birth. And so it was that the princess was at her good sister's side on the 3rd day of that accursed year 120 AC, the year of the Red Spring. A day and a night of labor left Laena Valerion pale and weak, but finally she gave birth to the son Prince Daemon had so long desired, but the babe was twisted and malformed, and died within the hour. Nor did his mother long survive him. Her grueling labor had drained all of Lady Laena's strength, and grief weakened her still further, making her helpless before the onset of childbed fever. As her condition steadily worsened, despite the best efforts of Driftmark's young maester, Prince Daemon flew to Dragonstone and brought back Princess Rhaenyra's own maester, an older and more experienced man renowned for his skills as a healer. Sadly, Maester Gerardis came too late. After 3 days of delirium, Lady Laena passed from this mortal coil. She was but 27. During her final hour, it is said, Lady Laena rose from her bed, pushed away the septas praying over her, and made her way from her room, intent on reaching Vagar that she might fly one last time before she died. Her strength failed her on the tower steps, however, and it was there she collapsed and died. Her husband, Prince Demon, carried her back to her bed. Afterward, Mushroom tells us, Princess Rhaenyra sat vigil with him over Lady Lena's corpse, and comforted him in his grief.